Raider Nation. What is happening? It's me. It's Raider.
Are you still there? Oh dear. Looks like he dropped out. But Nicolette is with us. Hey, Nicolette, how you doing?
I'm good, Raider Damas. How are you?
I am very well. Not because of the Raiders, but because I'm a big Oregon Ducks fan, and I saw them get a 1-point win over the Ohio State Buckeyes at Autzen Stadium on Saturday night. The Raiders game was a massive disappointment, as I knew it would be. But I am happy to see that my Ducks took care of business, got the 1-point win. I impressed all the hundreds of recruits who were in attendance. The 60,000 people who were in Austin sounded like 200,000 people. All the Ohio State fans with their fingers over their ears because they couldn't believe how loud it was an incredible thing to watch. Was a fantastic game to witness. Was one of the most fun Oregon games I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely fantastic. A great experience all around. Oregon has a great case to be number one, although Texas is very deserving as well. I'm just looking forward to seeing how that goes. We have a lot going on in Raider Nation as well, which I'm sure we will get to whenever Biggs gets his collective shit figured out over there. But for now, we have a lot to talk about. Davante Adams is now a New York Jet. Can I get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was waiting for some move to happen, and the Jets move is not a surprise. There's been links for seemingly forever at this point. I think it's great for the Jets, and there's a lot more to this, but just on the surface level, I'm gonna give Telesco some flowers, because not necessarily sunflowers, but some flowers, because that's the matter regardless of what happened of traded so many picks to get him, and what's not. Getting rid of an almost 32-year-old receiver who's dealing with quote-unquote hammy issues, but have some sort of, regardless if it's true or not, as a receiver especially, someone who does run as quick as he does, it takes a toll on a little bit in your body, and he was really expensive on top of that, so you realistically weren't going to get too much. They had to lower it to the second round pick to a third one. It is conditional, however, that very lofty conditions, but something's better than nothing. He wasn't going to stay anyways next season, even if they were to keep him. And as far as everything else, well, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother topic, but those are just my instant thoughts. It's good for the Jets, for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Davante Adams is a receiver on the wrong side of 30. And when Bill Belichick was asked about this a week or so ago, he said if you could get a fifth or fourth rounder for the guy, you'd be lucky to do that. And Tom Telesco got a third and possibly a second rounder for him. So that's a win for me. It did not ever make sense for me for Davante Adams to be on this team after Derek Carr was shipped out.
Yeah.
Because the only reason he's on this team in the first place was so he can come and play with his good buddy Derek Carr, who's now in New Orleans. So the only trades that made sense in my mind at any point were to the Jets or to the Saints. The Jets ponied up, and he's going to go. And in about a year and a half, when Aaron Rodgers calls it quits, when his leg falls off, Davante Adams will probably force his way out of New York to go play somewhere else. But then he'll be the Jets' problem and not ours. So that will be a lot of fun to look and point and laugh and say, hey, he's your issue now, guys. Sorry about that. Have fun.
Concur with both of you. I'm really getting sick and fucking tired of my computer problems. I just did 2 shows today on 2 different platforms. One of them this StreamYard, and I had 0 problems. I get into Raiders Uncovered, boom, problems. I'm tired of it. Stop it.
Represents the Raiders in a nutshell.
I thought I had it.
No, you're not wrong.
yeah, basically. I had a nice conversation with my son, who's been on the show before. We were talking about the trade and what it means. And I was like, well, at a certain point, it's sunk cost. We lost two first round draft picks to get him, and basically all it did was give us good feels when he was here with Derek Carr, and then Josh McDaniels fucked everything the fuck up. And then losing him, the only positive is getting out from under the money, because it was 2 first round draft picks plus the money. Well, now we have some money to spend in free agency, but we were never going to get any return that was close to what the talent level that he put on the field for us. We make, I am encouraged by the performances of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers the few games while Davante was out before Sunday. I was somewhat encouraged by Trey Tucker's increase in volume, but losing a guy who is going to provide you with 140 to 175 targets in a season is hard. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, especially when we don't get anything back immediately. All the dividends will come in the future. It's not like we traded him for a player who's going to add to what we're trying to do here. And that it feels to me like it was we're cashed out. It's time to tank. And I really feel like it's nationwide. It's Raider nationwide, that feeling. We're not playing for 2024 anymore. We're not. So there's really no, like, what are we going to do? Try and make a playoff run? Like, and so, okay, so let him go. Let's work to the future. And organization wide, everything beginning on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time has been about 2025. Tom Brady coming out, being approved as a minority owner along with Richard Seymour, which is fantastic. Just win, baby. Let's fucking go is what Tom Brady hashtagged on his Instagram, which was pretty great. But that's not about anything that's happening this year. The Davante Adams trade announced last night, and basically, like, he shows up on Aaron Rodgers' little blurb on the Pat McAfee show. They're already in cahoots. This thing has been coming for a while. That's not about this year. The salary, not about this year. The draft pick compensation, that's not about this year. What is about this year? This year is about Christian Wilkins out. No direction with the offense. Luke Getsy is not doing this team any favors. He's not doing the talent that's on the field any favors. And so basically we're just looking at let's hope that Brock Bowers doesn't suffer a catastrophic injury, or Max Crosby, and let's see if we can hit 2-15.
Yeah, I'm thinking as far as Davante Adams goes, he's going from one rudderless, directionless, mediocre franchise to another. He's not going to be happy for very long in New York, except for the fact that he's playing with Rodgers, and that's not going to last because Rodgers is 94 years old, and he's not going to be playing football for that much longer.
Right.
So getting rid of him and getting a second-round draft pick is a net positive for me.
Maybe.
Except for the fact that the Raiders no longer have a definite number one receiver, because I don't think Jacoby Myers is that. He's best as a slot guy, as is like 90% of the wide receivers we have on our roster right now are best as slot guys. So we are in the market now with our $106+ million in cap space that we're going to have next season. We're in the market for a number one wide receiver, whether that comes in free agency or it comes in the draft.
Paging Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
Mark
guy.
Davis is on the line.
That's a guy we could use, but we're only going to use a guy like that if we have a number one quarterback, if we have a franchise quarterback, and we haven't had a franchise quarterback since, 2002? It's been a really long time. I mean, whatever you think of Derek Carr, maybe he's a franchise quarterback today with the New Orleans Saints, but he wasn't with us except for, a few shining months in 2016 before he broke his leg. And then he really never was again.
Well, I mean, the organization's career leader in yards as a quarterback. That's a franchise quarterback.
Was
period.
Derek Carr ever a top 10 quarterback in the NFL when he played? Statistically probably not. Was he ever a guy that you could get?
He did have seasons that were top 10 in DVOA, which is an efficiency metric that nerds like to use. But
was he ever a guy in fantasy that you didn't have to wait until the last round to draft him? Because I remember lots and lots of fantasy drafts that I was in where he was still there in the last round. Now, that has nothing to do with whatsoever with reality. What it has to do, though, is perception. Is this guy one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL? A lot of people thought no. I want a guy where everybody points at him and says, that's the dude.
They did do that as he was ascending from his rookie year, 2015, 2016. In 2016, he was being called he was in the MVP running. There were two names in 2016, Carr and Brady. He got broken. That's not his fault. He winds up
worst Christmas Eve of my life.
It was awful.
Like I said, for a few shining months in 2016, he was that guy, and then he broke his leg, and he was never that guy again.
But then he continued to push the organization forward. We did make the playoffs with him. He captained a couple of different playoff teams. We haven't had a quarterback do that since Rich Gannon. Derek Carr did that. He leads the organization in career passing yards. That's not for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, we got to talk about giving flowers. We got to give the dude his flowers. He was here for less than 10 years, and he leads the organization in career passing yards.
I think that just goes
got us to the playoffs a couple times.
How transitive the Raiders starting quarterback position has been since Ken Stabler, because we haven't had a quarterback be here for more than 3 years, generally, aside from Derek Carr.
You are correct. But one more point to add to that, and I know that you've been part of this discussion on Silver and Black Pride, on Twitter. What was the state of our defenses that were playing with Derek Carr? We had the Raiders as a top 10 offense in the NFL with a number 28, 29, 30 defense under Gus Bradley, under some of the jokers and clowns that we had that were leading the way. If Derek Carr had a better defense, the Raiders would have done better, and he would be much higher in the eyes of a lot of people. You can't get much higher than in my eyes because I see what I see. And obviously it's an opinionated, subjective point that I'm trying to make, but we got to give the guy the credit for the years that he gave to us.
I agree with you that if Derek Carr had a great defense, he'd probably be thought of better. But if my mom had two wheels, she'd be a bicycle. I mean, it is what it is at this point.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, there were hopes on his back, and he carried us to the playoffs a couple of different times. That's like that has to count for something. He leads the organization in career passing yards. That has to count for something. He made guys who were absolute garbage, Aguilar and Crabtree and all these guys, Zay Jones, relevant wide receivers because of how good he was in the system that he was playing under. So he was a franchise quarterback. That's the only quibble. The only quibble that I had. He needs the credit that he deserves.
I'm just tired of having a guy on the Raiders who no one looks at, or the consensus isn't that this guy is a top 10, top 8 elite ass quarterback in the league. I want the Raiders to draft somebody really high who has a lot of potential, freaking lives up to it, and is a guy that everybody points to and says, this is the dude, like everybody does with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And everyone looks at Justin Herbert, even though he hasn't done jack shit in the NFL, and points to and says, that guy's great. I want the Raiders to have somebody we point to and say, that guy's great. Gardner Minshew, nobody was pointing to Gardner Minshew and saying that guy's great, or AOC.
No, I understand what you're saying. But Justin Herbert is a perfect example. He was a high first-round pick, totally anointed, hasn't done a damn thing to help the Chargers or make them any better. They made the playoffs in his rookie season. He hasn't done anything since. Derek Carr, at this point in his career, 4 or 5 years in or whatever, was better than where Justin Herbert's at. But you walk around and you ask people who's better, Justin Herbert or Derek Carr, every single one of them is going to tell you Justin Herbert, and they're absolutely wrong. Does Justin Herbert maybe have more talent? Yeah. Is he a leader, a winner, a dog like Derek Carr was? No, not at all. He's not good, but that's the narrative. And that's what Derek Carr fought his entire time after his injury, was the narrative of that he was bad.
The biggest game Justin Herbert is ever going to win is the Rose Bowl that he won against Wisconsin. He's never going to win a Super Bowl. He ain't never going to win shit. Derek Carr may or may not win a damn thing with the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr deserves so much better than what the NFL has given him as a hand to deal with. Listen, I am a huge fan of Derek Carr as a human being, and I would have loved to see Derek Carr have a lot more success than he did. The Raiders organization did him dirty time and time again by not putting a team around him. But Derek Carr also bears a lot of responsibility for not coming back from broken leg or broken whatever the hell, and not being the guy that he was when he was so promising in 2016. He never got to that level again. And I don't know how much responsibility he bears for that, but it has to be some. I want a guy on the Raiders so we can point to and say, that's the dude. And I don't think anybody ever pointed to Derek Carr and said, that's the dude.
That's what I'm saying. We absolutely did in 2015, 2016. We expected it when he came back in 2018. He got broken by a terrible defensive line again, broke his back. Like, it just repeated the process. And then once he was finally healthy, he took us to the playoffs when Gruden got fired and we had Rich Bisaccia. And that was Derek Carr. That wasn't Bisaccia coaching the team. That was Derek Carr going out on the field and literally willing the team into the playoffs. 4-game winning streak. Every single game was win or go home. Win or the season's over. Every game was a playoff game, and he won every single one of them, including the great timeout game in against the Chargers. The unfortunate play call that wasn't his against Cincinnati, the only option he had was Darren Waller, who was short of the end zone anyway. I mean, even that season could have gone even better, and it was purely because Derek Carr. Now, I understand what you're saying. So I told my co-hosts on my earlier show today, my draft scouting started yesterday. I'm looking at Carson Beck. I'm looking at Jackson Dart. I'm looking at Shedeur Sanders. I am starting to scour. I want to know who the options are. And then over the next 12 weeks, 11 weeks, we'll know where our draft position is and what's realistic.
Well, for me, my options 1A, 1B, and 1C are all Cam Ward. And they have been.
Mine too.
They have been for about a year and a half. I mean, I watched a lot of this guy at Wazoo, and I've watched a lot of him in Miami. This guy is an absolute winner. He is an absolute dog. His fundamentals, maybe they're not the greatest fundamentals in the world, but this guy is, he plays like a man among boys like Cam Newton used to do. He's just one of those superlative, preternatural talents that wills his team to victory no matter what. As a Cal fan, you saw that. A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, sorry about that.
I apologize for how that team.
Sorry about that.
But if you park the bus against Cam Ward, he's going to kill you. You can't. He's
Sure.
just going to score until the game is over.
Yeah.
I saw. It's very similar to what I saw from Bo Nix and Michael Penix in their penultimate years, not their final years, but their penultimate years. A lot of things need to work on. A lot of footwork issues. A lot of you can't throw the ball across the field in the NFL, and he's doing it in college, which he can't do it in college. I'm not even going to get into how much the refs helped in that game, but
a lot.
So now, sorry, Nicolette.
No,
so now
they did.
It's scouting season, and it's only fucking October. What the hell?
Barely. I've been scouting since August. What are you talking about?
Priority. I know what you're saying. I do the same thing. I'm just saying we shifted on Sunday afternoon from okay, maybe we can salvage something out of the season to we're done. We're done.
Now, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't think there's any sort of honor in going like 7-10 or having like a record that Jeff Fisher would bring your team. There's no honor in that. You know, there's a lot of Raider fans, probably the majority of the Raider fan base, that has a visceral reaction to the idea of tanking. They hate it, like in the way that they would, hate it if someone came and like stole the tires off of their truck or, broke into their grandma's house or something like that. They really, really hate that stuff.
Count me in that number.
Yeah, sure. I understand it though, because no one wants to admit that the Raiders are losers.
Yeah.
We
are.
We are.
It's
no
not
one
even
wants to say that losing is the way to go because losing is considered dishonorable. But where's the honor in winning 7 games and picking at number 14 and missing out on all the players that you actually want?
Right.
The only time that ever actually works is when you already have your franchise quarterback in place.
Well,
because the teams that do that, like the Eagles and the Ravens, already have franchise quarterbacks in place, and they can stay put at their mediocre records wherever the hell they end up and take their future Hall of Famer guard or tight end or whoever the hell falls to them when all the other idiot teams who won 5 games make their stupid, shitty draft picks that they reached 3 rounds too early for. That happens every single year. We've been over this on this show. There's no honor in not tanking. If you are going to suck, if you're going to miss the playoffs, why would you win 6 games and pick 12th when you could put your best players in bubble wrap and win 2 games and get your quarterback of the future, tear it all down and build it back up? That's what the Bengals did. The Bengals did that with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and look at the Bengals now. The Bengals have been to a Super Bowl. When's the last time the Raiders went to a Super Bowl? 22 fucking years ago? Yes. I want to go back to a Super Bowl, and we're not going to do that unless we have a good receiving core and a good quarterback. We have a talented defense. We have a defense right now that can't fucking tackle, but we certainly have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. What we don't have is an offensive identity, an offensive scheme, and a quarterback. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to get one of those guys unless we're in position to get one of those guys, which means we have to lose and lose and lose. There's no honor in winning.
I understand that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I totally understand that. But it's not about a tank at this point. It's about the fact that we are so bad, it's not likely that we're going to do anything to resist tanking.
And
but
it's also irrelevant whether the losses are intentional or not.
Right, but go tell Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham and Luke Getsy and Robert Spillane and Max Crosby and Aiden O'Connell and Andre, go tell them, go ahead and tank. What are they going to do when they go out on the field? They're going to play like NFL players.
That message was clear the day they decided to start Gardner Minshew. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Raiders stopped trying to win the moment they made that choice. The moment they not only signed that guy, but also made him the starting quarterback after everything Aiden O'Connell did last year. It was an absurd decision then. It is an absurd decision now. It'll be an absurd decision 20 years from now when we look back on it. This was not a serious franchise trying to win at any point this season.
Yeah, and having not a clear QB winner coming a week into preseason while they're in Costa Mesa out here was an instant red flag. And sure, Gardner Minshew's cheap and you can always get rid of him, but that's not the point. And some could even argue, especially with Antonio Pierce's name, with half these guys vouching for him and Crosby even saying, "Oh, I want to be traded if I don't get Pierce." I think there's no correlation with that, but that could be another reason. So there's just a lot of big mess really going on. And
yeah, and I absolutely agree. And Davante Adams was totally in on Pierce too. They were the leadership of this team, but it wasn't Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce isn't the reason for all of this that's going on right now. It has to do with Tom Telesco and Luke Getsy. And those were unnecessary pieces. We had McDonald's at home. We didn't need to go out and get those guys. Bo Hardigree was more than capable as an offensive coordinator. And I would love for Tom Brady to step to the podium and say, we're announcing the termination of Luke Getsy and Bo Hardigree is the offensive coordinator again. It won't matter at this point because it subverts the tank. But the point is, moving forward, Luke Getsy is not an answer in the NFL, and that has become readily apparent because Aiden O'Connell is the same guy he was last year, and Aiden O'Connell in this offense does not look the same as Aiden O'Connell looked last year. We shall see moving forward, but it's going to take 9 wins at this point, 8 or 9 wins to make the playoffs. That's not going to happen.
No.
There's no reason.
It would take this team 3 years to get 9 wins.
DFK got to keep developing Bowers, though. Bowers is developed. What are you talking about, bro? He's
Bowers. I mean, the greatest player in the history of the SEC, Brock Bowers. Is that who you mean? We have to develop him. Listen, that guy is already has mastered football. He's probably on to astrophysics at this point. No, but in all seriousness, Brock Bowers was an absolute home run pick by Tom Telesco in the first round of the draft. It was a pick that was questioned by a lot of people.
Not us.
Not us. Those people are stupid. You want to listen to people who know what they're talking about, you got to come to the Raiders Uncovered and listen to us.
Absolutely.
We were on that pick as a home run from day fucking one.
And any one of us would have made it as the GM too.
100%. I could do that job. Yeah, I actually could.
Yeah, me too. I want to acknowledge the chat. We got Jamie checking in. What's up, guys? Missed you on the show earlier today. My partner on the show that I'm referring to, Dynasty Football KDFK, he does the Cowboy show up on Uncovered. Get Shrek Bra, he's in the chat. Yep.
That's not the kind of move a serious franchise that actually wants to win makes. That's not a winning move. That's a move that says we don't have the quarterback of the future on this team right now, and we're just going to get in position to draft. That's why
I have posited over the last few weeks that it was Luke Getsy's Tom Telesco and Luke Getsy's decision and not Antonio Pierce's, because all Gardner Minshew was a free agent signing in the offseason to fill up the quarterback room behind Aiden fucking O'Connell. That's what it was. And somewhere along the way, Luke Getsy got it in his head that we need a quarterback with more mobility. No, we don't. We need a quarterback who can stand in the pocket and throw dots. And that's what Aiden O'Connell did last year. Now quit fucking around and let him go out there and do it. And they waited too damn long. They pissed off Davante Adams. We just lost a Hall of Famer. I mean, it all kind of snowballed. We also had Capitan Rafucho in the chat.
Man.
What's up, Capitan? Missed you on the show the last few weeks. And yeah, what a shit show, right? Am I right? All right, so we got the Davante Adams trade. That went down today. We got the Tom Brady and Richard Seymour approval as owners. We did the State of the Nation. We're not talking about... I mean, do we really want to go into the game?
The game was the refs beat the Raiders. I mean, yeah, the Steelers did okay, but if the refs had put their flags up their ass where it belongs, the Raiders might have actually won that game. I mean,
okay.
It was an absolute travesty.
So let's play a little game, and chat. You guys can play too. I'm gonna throw something out there, and I want you guys to answer. Raider Damas, you can go first.
Sure.
Just a real quick answer. Then Nicolette, chat. You guys can throw your answers in the chat, and then I'll follow with mine. At what point did you turn the game off? Go.
Halftime.
A little before halftime, so like 2 minutes in.
I beat you guys. I turned it off right as the interception was called back on Adam Butler's roughing the passer. I was like, we're not winning this game, and I turned it off.
We've seen this movie too many times before. I mean, the Raiders have had some awful defenses in the past, but the Raiders have been called for some truly egregious penalties that did not need to be called, and in fact would not have been called on any other franchise in this league except for the one that it was called on. That's not even in question. That's been scientifically and statistically proven. So it's absurd to sit here and pretend like the Raiders didn't get absolutely jobbed out like one of those enhancement talents in the 80s NWA who came in with their blue trunks and got smacked down by the Road Warriors. That's exactly what happened.
Well,
And I'm not going to sit here and say that it didn't.
we got Get Shrek Bra checking in with third quarter, and then Jamie Pirog, he wins, didn't even turn the game on. LOL.
Well, you can't beat that. That's unbeatable.
But he's a Browns fan. And then DFK.
He's used to not turning the game on then.
Listen to it on Red Zone. All right. So are you guys ready for a conspiracy theory?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought we were out of conspiracy theories. One of the least penalized teams over the last 2 years, Josh McDaniels, the only thing that he did that was good for the Raiders was suddenly no penalties. Is that a Patriots thing? Was the NFL going easy on him because he is a Patriots legacy? But we have a new conspiracy theory. Boom, here we go. NFL put a hit job on the Raiders due to the Gruden lawsuit. Now we're back at it again.
Gruden hasn't been employed by the Raiders in 6 years now?
I know.
Why are we still paying for what racist McEmails had to say?
That's why I said it's a conspiracy theory. But I wouldn't put it past them. We also had we were the least penalized team going into this week. Here's another question for the Dome. The Raiders lost, what was it, 32-13?
Yeah.
And Justin Fields still lost his job? What?
Well, I'm sure even if you asked Mike Tomlin and gave him some truth serum, he would tell you that Justin Fields is ass and the refs won in that game. And he would probably tell you that Russell Wilson probably wouldn't have won that game without the refs either. But he'll probably tell you that Russell Wilson right now is a better option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they, just like the Raiders, are rudderless and directionless and looking for their quarterback of the future, because it is not Justin Fields.
No, they do have a rudder, though. Unfortunately for them, that rudder is Arthur Smith.
Football terrorist Arthur Smith.
There you go. All right. So what are we doing in fantasy circles? We say ROS. It means rest of the season. What are we doing rest of the season? Are we watching this game against the Rams? Do we even give a shit? Are we watching the game against the Chiefs?
Well, I'm working Rams Raiders, so I don't have a choice. But
what are you doing?
I'll red zone it, but I like to spend time with things that give me joy. That may be kind of a white girl thing for me to say, which is reasonable.
Yeah.
But I'm 40 years old. I don't have time to spend with things that are damaging to my mental health. I just don't. And I've learned over the course of my life to spend time with things that make me happy.
Right.
And right now, I'm not getting a lot of joy from the Las Vegas Raiders. I love the Las Vegas Raiders, and I always will, and there's no changing that. I will always care about them. I will always follow the team. But right now, I'm not going to put that into my eyeballs. I'm not going to force myself to watch that. So I'll red zone it. I'll pay attention, and I'll come here every Tuesday, and I'll talk about it. And that's fine. But you're not going to make me watch those games because they do not spark joy.
Nicolette, you're working the game. What do you do? Are you going to be there, or are you going to be in the studio?
I'm actually going to be physically there.
Fuck
so
yeah. I'm so sorry.
I'm stoked. It's interesting. So a lot of it, I also work part-time with the Rams on game days. So this is going to be from a Rams perspective. This is going to be very interesting. I'm on the sales side. So we'll see how this goes. Obviously, inside is going to be silver and black, but I'm here like, okay, it's going to be 65% Raider fans. It's another home game. Obviously, Baker Mayfield's not going to be here to break everyone's hearts, but McVay and Matthew Stafford.
No, it'll be Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
or Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you have Rams gear that you have to wear?
I do. So
but what Raiders gear are you going to be wearing underneath it?
Oh, definitely a shirt. I just haven't decided which one. I'm going to wear a shirt underneath. And
all right.
Kind of call that.
And Get Shrek is playing the Rams in a Survivor League.
Yeah.
But Get Shrek. Now that we're on the tank and you're doing that, it becomes a trap game, and the Raiders
Oh
win.
yeah, this is absolutely the sort of game where the Raiders, who are in massive amounts of turmoil and everybody's counting them out, they're going to win, like 16-13.
Tom Brady's going to be on the sidelines.
Yeah, you can count on it. I mean, and the Rams are going to pick this week to completely fall apart, and everybody is going to pick the Raiders to lose, and they're going to look stupid. This is just how the Raiders do things.
I'm going to watch the game because I can't help it. I know that it's better for me and my mental health to pay as little attention as possible, but I cannot get myself to not watch the start of the game at least. If there's a certain point where I'm like, all right, this is worthless. Or even if we're winning, I'm gonna watch it begrudgingly and be like, shouldn't be winning right now. But I can't not do it. It's just a part of me.
Well, I think the problem with the Raiders season so far this year is that they had to play a second quarter against every team that they played so far because there are 4 quarters in a football game, and the Raiders tend to absolutely shit the bed in the second one of every single game that they played so far. If there wasn't a second quarter, if we went straight from the first quarter to halftime, the Raiders would probably be undefeated because that's the kind of team they are. They start really strong, and then they completely fall off a cliff once all those scripted plays are gone.
Well, hey, that's a 180-degree turn from when we used to punt every single first drive.
Yeah, and the Raiders, luckily, in the course of their history, have managed to have some of the greatest punters in the history of the sport. At the end of A.J. Cole's career, it may be entirely possible that the Raiders have the 3 best punters of all time.
That's kind of the sad thing, is that at this point we have to look at it like, well, we're wasting Max Crosby, we're wasting some of the other pieces, but we're sure as hell not wasting A.J. Cole.
No, we're not.
No.
We're not. When the Buffalo Bills, as good as they are right now, they wasted Andre Reed and Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly and 10 or 12 other guys who played at an all-pro level for 4 or 5 solid years and won absolutely jack fucking shit. It is very hard to win a Super Bowl in this league, as most players don't ever get a ring. So when the Raiders have any success at all, we shouldn't take that for granted, but we tend to.
I don't remember when that was.
That was 22 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl and got blown out because their center went on a bender in Tijuana and their coach sold them out.
I'm sorry, I have to say it wasn't a bender. It was a mental health episode, but it was Bill Callahan.
Can it be both?
It was Bill Callahan.
Hey, listen, if I had to play for that guy, I'd probably go on a mental health episode too.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the fact that he just it was also Al. Al kind of had a hand in it. If we had retained John Gruden instead of trading away our head coach just because Al Davis had a grudge, that was a dynasty level team.
Well, if Al Davis didn't hold grudges, we would still have had Marcus Allen starting
right
1993, 1994.
Yeah, and I mean the unfortunate part for me is that we won the Super Bowl when I was 10 years old, and that's when I started taking it for granted.
They won the Super Bowl the year I was born, well before I was born, and I have never seen them win one since.
40 years ago, I've been waiting 40 years. I feel like a Red Sox fan at this point.
Hey, at least I've seen like 3 or 4 Red Sox World Championships.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And I've seen 3 Giants World Championships.
I know.
They won 3 in 5 years, which was pretty cool.
I became a Red Sox fan in 1986 because I was so masochistic that when they lost the World Series, I was like, all right, I can adopt these guys.
Do you have a Bill Buckner jersey back there somewhere?
No, I don't.
That's a shame. You should get one.
My neighbor and I made a bet. I was 12. I made a bet with my neighbor. If the Mets win the World Series, he mows I mow his lawn for a month. If my big chore at home was mowing the lawn. If the Red Sox win, he mows my lawn for a month. And I had it. Until Billy Buckner. It was Calvin Schiraldi. It wasn't Billy Buckner. It was Calvin Schiraldi's fault. And the Red Sox fell apart. And we saw it happen to the Giants. It happened to the Giants in 2003.
Shit, I was in the Bay Area in '89 during the Loma Prieta earthquake. I mean, and I saw them not play the game when the earthquake happened for quite a long time. And then the A's came back and absolutely blew them away, which they probably would have anyway with the Bash Brothers and as amazing as the 1989 A's were. But yeah, it was a long time between the time I became a Giants fan and when I actually saw them win anything.
That A's team was the first MLB team that was all on steroids.
Oh yeah, that was the injection capital of the world at that point. It was fantastic to watch, but when I grew up and realized what they were doing, I was like, oh, that's why those muscles were so big.
Get Shrek Bra was born during the '89 earthquake. You mean like at 5:05 p.m. on that day? Was your mom in the hospital watching the World Series? Were you in the Bay Area? Was she like shaking while she was in labor? That's rad.
That was a wild day, man. That was a 7.1, still one of the biggest earthquakes in the history of North America. I was in the second floor apartment. I was 5 years old, and I did not know what the hell was happening. I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah, I was doing homework, trying to get it done so that I could go watch the Giants in the World Series. And when it happened, my parents were hippies. My dad wasn't home, but my mom was. And so when I walked out to the kitchen, I started feeling nauseous sitting at my desk in my bedroom. And then I walked into the kitchen and I was like, Mom, do you feel like you're having a flashback? And she looked at me and she goes, how do you know what a flashback feels like? I was like, uh-oh. In California, hospital lost power, born shortly after. Nice. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it in Davis. I mean, that's 70 miles away from where, or 75 miles away from where the World Series is, probably 120 miles away from Watsonville. That's how strong that earthquake was I was in Davis, like rocking and rolling. So,
wow.
Yeah. We're old, Nicolette.
Yeah, I was not alive, so I have no story to tell.
But I'm sure you've seen the documentaries.
I did. Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to get out of here. We'll be back on Tuesday. Next week, after the Raiders lose to the Rams, look forward to a head-to-head show with Mike Lindbergh, a.k.a. Grindberg, one of my co-hosts and partners. He does the Chiefs Uncovered. And as we get ready for Chiefs Week, we're going to have a combined show with him. So I hope everybody in the chat watches that show. Next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, we will basically be announcing when that head-to-head program will be. So I want all you guys in the chat talking shit on the Chiefs. I don't care if we suck. We can go 2 and whatever for the rest of the season. Just let those 2 be against the Chiefs because fuck them. And what a shit show, right? Absolutely. We had so much hope. I'm going to go back and rewatch our preview show right before the season started and just laugh at Raider Damas and I talking about the perceived records, looking at the games and going, oh, this is a win. That's a win. That's a win. Oh, we might lose. Oh, no.
You know, we had hope, and we have a good team. We have a lot of talent on this team. What we don't have is execution. And if you ask me what I think about the execution of the Raiders, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. Just get the ball in Brock's hands. That's all. It's all we can hope for.
Hey, the draft is only a few months away.
And hey, I got an idea. Let's Max Crosby play 60% of snaps now. Don't play 92 fucking % of snaps, Max. We already lost Christian Wilkins.
I would put that man in bubble wrap and stick him under the Christmas tree.
Yeah, I don't know why, but there's so much bullshit narrative that goes out into the sphere about the Raiders, including Davante Adams trade rumors before this year. Obviously, the ones this year had some validity. Tom Brady coming to the Raiders, all that stupid ass bullshit. I don't want to hear the Raiders are trading Max Crosby to the Detroit Lions. I don't want to hear it again. I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Max doesn't want it. The team doesn't want it.
for
There's
a
no reason to
reason.
do it.
Well, I remember when there was a lot of smoke around, the Raiders are trading Khalil Mack. And I went on Silver Black Pride and I wrote a article about how the Raiders weren't trading Khalil Mack. And I got in a lot of trouble for that. And I got in a lot of trouble on Twitter for that. And I couldn't open Twitter for like 4 days because I had about 500 notifications about how I was on Old Takes Exposed and all that horse shit. So it was It was a terrible day. It was a terrible week for me because I was like, there's no way the Raiders are trading Khalil Mack. And then the next day they fucking did. And so that's why I've learned if there's smoke, there's probably fire, and I should keep my goddamn mouth shut.
I want to be on Old Takes Exposed. I'm going to go post a rant about how
you don't. It's not a good time.
Max Crosby's not being traded. He's got a tattoo, for Christ's sake.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You know what? So did Landon Collins. He got a tattoo of fucking Auburn, and then he went to Alabama.
That's amazing. Okay. But Max he's the face of the fucking franchise. Like, he is the embodiment of Raider Nation. And I think Mark knows that. And I don't think Mark would allow that to happen. I think if Tom Telesco ever went to Mark Davis and said, I've got a deal in place to trade Max Crosby, Mark Davis would fire him on the spot. In my heart of hearts, that's what I know.
I'm not sure if that's not a fireable offense. I'm not sure what is.
Right? Khalil Mack never came out and said, like, he was good friends with Derek Carr, but he never came out and said, I'm going to be a Raider for life. He never said that.
Mm-mm.
He was a businessman. Max Crosby's not a businessman. He's a fucking Raider. You guys. All right.
We've done lots of yelling. I think this is therapeutic for us.
Hey, let's meet back here at 8 o'clock next week and do some more yelling.
Yeah, free therapy.
That's good. I'm going to have a lot of nasty things to say about the Rams. I apologize to you, Nicolette, if I have anything nasty to say about the Rams.
No, it's all good. I'm subjective from 1 o'clock to 4:30, whatever the hell the game is, and afterwards I am switching to Silver Black.
What I say will be very, very offensive to the 16 people who give two shits about the Los Angeles Rams.
I'm not an Englewood. I'll be okay.
Englehood. All right. Thank you guys for watching. As every week, fuck the Broncos.
Yeah. Fuck the Chiefs.
Fuck Kermit.
And fuck the Chargers.
Thank you.